I'm making a teapot as part of a commission for a shop. Some teapots have been ordered, so I've got to make them. Today, I'm just going to take you through the process of that, of how I do that, of how I approach it, of things that you need in a teapot, how to make sure it pours properly, how to make sure the lid fits, how to make sure it looks nice. And that's about it, I guess. You know, we don't need too much of an introduction, really. Let's talk about what a teapot needs. A teapot that is a good teapot needs to have a few things. So we need to have the body of the teapot, of course. That's where the tea goes, that's where the tea steeps. You need a lid that goes on the top of the body. You need to have a spout. The spout is where the tea obviously pours from. You want to make sure that's not like dribbly or drippy. You kind of want to have a beautiful stream of tea coming out of the teapot, and you need a handle so that you can pick it up without burning yourself. They're kind of the main thing. So it's like 4 elements. If you've ever wondered why handmade teapots are so expensive, it's because they're fiddly to make, they're complex, and they take a lot of skill. So if you're new to ceramics, then I think it's a good challenge, but it's not until you're kind of a little bit further down your journey that you're able to make consistently good teapots. And I think that they're fantastic things to practice, and I remember my very first teapot that I made, the lid stuck to it so I could never actually use it, but I used it as like a flower pot. I put flowers in the spout, real silly, or whatever. I just want to take a quick wee sidebar to talk about something very important, our mental health, and how this video's paid partner, BetterHelp, is on a mission to making starting therapy easier. Life can be a lot sometimes, and just like ceramics, it's all about balance and care. I know a lot of you watch these videos and maybe even do pottery yourself to look after your mental health. So take the next step and try talk therapy. BetterHelp is an online platform that makes professional therapy incredibly accessible and convenient. Starting therapy is super easy with BetterHelp. Fill out a questionnaire and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. One of the best features of BetterHelp is if the first therapist doesn't feel right, you can easily switch to another until you find someone who you really connect with. You don't need to have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety to benefit from therapy. It truly is for everybody. As a special offer, BetterHelp is giving my viewers 10% off your first month. Use my link here or in the description below to get started. Try BetterHelp today. Okay, back to it. So we're going to start with the clay. We're going to start with about 1 kilogram of clay for the body, and then we need, I don't know, maybe 200 or 300 grams for the lid. We need, I don't know, 500 grams maybe for the spout, which seems like a lot, but we're going to throw it off the hump. So we have like a few different options for spouts. And then we need a handful of clay for the handle, 200 or 300 grams as well. For all these things, I like to make a few. So we've got some variety, we've got some choice, and if things don't fit, then you can always swap it out for another. Someone hopefully one day will buy them and enjoy their teapots for the rest of their lives. Because a well-made teapot should last years and years and years. Maybe it's going to be a family heirloom. No pressure to me, but you know, I better make it good. I'm making 2 today. I don't know what type she wants in her order, so I'm going to make the 2 styles that I make and then let her know, and she can just pick which one kind of suit her style the best, and then we'll chuck it on the wheel and we will get throwing. As with anything that is kind of big, I like to throw on a bat. Throwing on a bat means that you can remove the piece without messing up the shape, and this is important especially when you're making something with a lid. If the rim moves, then the lid won't fit later down the track. I'm starting with a bat on a bat ring, so you just kind of throw a little flat plate thing and then you attach the bat on top by punching it down. As I mentioned, today I am throwing 2 kind of different styles of bodies today. One is more like a tall coffee pot kind of thing, and the other is a slightly more traditional teapot. I start off with the bodies as I find them the most challenging compared to the spouts and the lids. We're starting with the kind of more coffee pot shape, which is a tall, slightly cone-shaped cylinder. Pulling something that is tall and straight or cylindrical is the same kind of motion as doing that but with something smaller, but you can pull a lot more clay from the bottom in your first pull. If you need to collar it in to keep it in shape, then you should do that. And to maintain strong rims, make sure you remember your ABCs. Always be compressing, okay? That's the golden rule. Measuring and adjusting the intricacies of the pot, like maybe it's too wide or it's not wide enough or it's not quite the height you want, are really important for the general harmony of the shape. Once the rim width is set, I like to measure it twice just to make sure, note down that measurement and set up my calipers to the same size. This will come into play with the lid later. After measuring and adjusting, I always follow with the wooden rib tool to remove any excess slip and to keep it perfectly straight. This is optional. If you are making a round or a less rigid shape to me, then you can skip this if you want to. After I use the wooden rib, I always just double check the measurement one more time to make sure that I haven't pushed it out of kilter, and then I follow with the finishing steps like sponging, cutting a little notch under the pot and then wiring through. The next pot follows all of the same starting steps. We center, we open, we pull up the walls, and then this one's body looks a little bit different. I am making a straight-sided one and I'm flipping down the very top of the cylinder to create kind of a squared shape. I do this very, very carefully and very slowly. Faffing around with the wooden rib tool is key to getting it to sit flat, but also so is patience. If you can't get the clay to behave, honestly just come back after you've had a little bit of time to practice and like when you're fresh, because it can be quite a difficult process. I do the same thing for these ones as with the taller ones. I measure the opening, note it down and save it for later for the lids. If it's a little bit too narrow like this one was, I just use a pin tool to trim a little bit of excess clay off to widen it out a little bit. And then the same thing, remove any water from the inside and go about wiring off. So these teapots can be set aside now whilst we get started on the lids and the spouts. Right, so before we get started here, there's a few things that you need to know about a teapot's lid and a few ways to approach them. The goal of a lid is to sit snugly into the body, keeping the steam in the teapot and the tea warm. You can achieve this by using these elements, but you don't have to use all of them because there's loads. So I've drawn a little picture of a cross section of a teapot so you can understand what I'm talking about here. First of all, things on the body. The gallery is the recessed area around the opening of the teapot where the lid sits. It provides a secure resting spot for the lid to prevent it from sliding off when you pour. And the gallery's depth and shape are kind of crucial to ensuring a really well-fitting lid. Next is the flange, and this is kind of a small vertical ridge or protruding edge on the pot that extends upwards from the gallery on the teapot. It helps the lid stay in place and it kind of provides stability when the teapot's in use. And then on the lid itself, we've got the lid flange, and this part of the lid is the interior rim or the edge that extends downwards into the teapot body, and that sits snugly in the teapot gallery if you have one, or just kind of against the body. It ensures that the lid stays secure, especially when you're pouring, and it prevents it from falling off. Then we've got the lip, and the lip refers to the top edge of the lid. There's lots of "l" in here. It's the outermost part and it generally sits on the gallery or the topmost part of the teapot itself. And then the knob. The knob is the handle or like the grip on the top of the teapot, which just kind of allows you to take it off really easily. And knobs can come in various shapes and sizes, and often just kind of decorative rather than useful. I don't use all of these lid features for my teapots. My lids simply sit on top of the teapot. The lid itself has a lip and a flange to keep it in place. I also don't make knobs. Sorry, we're mature here. I'm so sorry about that. If it was recessed into a flange or a gallery, then you would need a knob. But yeah, for me, I am okay without them. So on that note, it means that I make my teapot lids upside down. I make my lids on a small bat, and since they're flat, upside down works fine for me. But if you don't want a flat lid and you want one that's kind of rounded like the shape of your teapot, you can throw it off the hump and make it right-sided up, and either don't include a flange on the lid or you can trim it in later. This whole lid business can be quite hard to explain, so it's absolutely worth having a bit of a play to see what kind of lid suits your teapot design and like sits properly on the bodies of your teapot. I know that I'm kind of breaking the rules of good lid design and lid etiquette and like the pottery rules or whatever with my pieces, and I'm okay with that because I'm slightly favoring form over function here. They do work. I think they would probably work better and I would have less failure if you were to add a gallery or a flange to your teapot. Okay, next up is spouts. I throw my spouts off the hump as I find it so much easier and so much more efficient to just center one piece of clay rather than loads of tiny pieces over and over again. I always make way more than I need because I like to pick my favorite ones and kind of the spout that best fits the teapot. And also I think throwing off the hump is a lot like pancakes and you always kind of make a few mistakes while you're doing it. So first of all, you want to center the clay and then you want to pull up a small section in a cone shape and then refine it a little. I like to use the wooden rib tool, surprise surprise, to get it nice and straight, and then I cut a little gouge into the base with a knife tool before I wire it off and set it aside. And then you just kind of repeat that process until all of the clay is gone. It doesn't matter if these are kind of tubes or if they're little pots with bases because you'll be cutting off the base to attach it to the teapot in due course anyway, so it kind of doesn't really matter. Before I make too many though, I want to show you how I create spouts that consistently pour well. I thin the clay out a little bit on a wee area by wetting my fingers and just kind of rubbing gently, and then I place my index finger and my thumb on either side of the outside of the spout before pulling my index finger of my other hand through that gap. It's quite a mouthful, but obviously you can see what I'm doing here. This creates a wee channel for the tea to flow out of. And try not to mess with this too much. Try and just kind of do it and then leave it. And you want it to be nice and sharp so that it kind of cuts the water when you stop pouring. Handmade teapots, I think, always have a risk of a little dribble here and there, which in my opinion is absolutely fine. Having a big stream of liquid pouring down the side of the teapot is not okay though, and this little trick really does ensure a good pourer. Here everything is off the wheel and drying a little bit on their wee bats. Smaller pieces like spouts will likely dry way quicker than bodies, so wrap them up if you're leaving everything to dry overnight. Okay, we're back. Next day in the studio, and everything is perfectly ready to trim and assemble. It's still very warm in my studio at this time of year, so I'm lucky. Any later into the cooler seasons and the teapot bodies might take a little, I don't know, like an extra day or so to dry. So just keep an eye on everything and wrap things up as you need to. Anyway, before trimming starts, it's time to make the handles before anything else. So I make slab handles as the squared shape of my slabs kind of suits the squarish shape of my work really well. I'm gonna link a video that I made recently about how to make handles in the description, so check that out if you need some help with how to make pulled handles or other handles. I'm not gonna go too in depth here. Anyway, after rolling the slabs out, I cut them out and then I shape them and set them aside to harden up while I trim my pieces. I'm going to show you how to trim and assemble the square teapot rather than the cone-shaped one, although they are very much the same process for both. I'm going to flip my teapot upside down on the wheel and center it, and I'm not adding a foot ring here, I'm just tidying everything up. So I'm just going in with my big teardrop loop tool, cleaning up the base, cleaning the walls up a little bit, and adding a nice defined chamfer. There's a 45-degree angle between the base and the wall to kind of elevate the piece a little bit. After that process is done, I flip it back over and I recenter it back on the wheel, but right side up this time, and just tidy up the top of the teapot and the wee corner piece before placing the lid back on. Honestly, I don't know why I did this. I attempted to trim the teapot on the body, which you can see it didn't really work. It doesn't need that much work, it just kind of needs a bit of a tidy up, and I need to level the lip out a little bit so that it sits really flush on the teapot body. So I've, attached it to the wheel head, and then I've used this little spinner tool to just press the lid down instead of using any water or any lugs to attach it to the wheel. You can get these at most pottery supply stores, and they're very helpful for things like this, and honestly that's kind of it. I find them kind of annoying for everything else. Anyway, after a quick sponge down and a fit check, it is time to move on to attaching the spout. Currently the spout is shaped like a cone, so we need to sort of chop the corner off because we don't want it to sit horizontally. We want it to sit kind of diagonally to the teapot, if that makes sense. I don't really know what angle I'm cutting here, but let's just say it's like around 45 degrees, give or take. I just do this by eye, but you can trace a path that you want to cut with a needle tool if you're not sure. This is a confusing thing to explain, but make sure that the channel of the spout that you pulled is on the long edge so that it faces down when it's attached. To make sure it really sits flush, it needs to be rounded a little bit, so you can either cut some more off to match the external shape of the teapot body, or you can use something round like the handle of a trimming tool, for example, to just kind of roll around and press into it. And then you want to check that it sits flat without wobbling too much. Deciding where you want to attach the spout isn't just an aesthetic choice. You need to make sure that it's at the highest point possible so that when the teapot is filled with liquid, it won't come pouring out of the spout. So the lowest point of the pouring end of the spout is the highest that the water level can be, so bear that in mind. You want to dab a little bit of water onto the teapot side of the spout and then gently press it into the wall of the pot, and this will leave you with like a little ghostly ring to show you where you can cut a hole or a few little holes for the tea to flow out of. I use a hole cutter to cut some holes in the side of the teapot body, but you can just use a knife tool or something to cut it out. Next, you want to score both the teapot in a ring around the cut holes and the spout, and then you want to apply a little bit of slip to the spout. I like to tidy the inside of the spout before attaching so that I can kind of minimize cleaning up later because it is a real drag. Position the spout in place on the teapot, and then supporting the teapot with your non-dominant hand, firmly but gently press the spout onto the body. You really want to force it on there. Obviously you don't want to deform the body, but you do really need to make sure it's attached properly. You can then blend the spout into the body, which can take a very long time, so get comfy. I sometimes add a little coil around the join if it needs it. This obviously needs to be blended in as well. You want to finish that off with a sponge down to tidy everything up. Next, it is time to add the handle. You can either attach the handle kind of on top so it kind of arches above it, or you can attach it to the side like I am. I like to line up a straight tool over the top of the teapot from the spout to where the handle will join so that you know that it's in exactly the right spot. Sometimes eyeballing it can be a little bit wonky. Score, slip and attach. Again, if you need more help with handles, you can check out the video that I've linked in the description. After it is attached, you want to sponge it down and slowly let it dry. If it is quite warm in your studio, you want to leave it with some plastic draped over the top with the lid on, and if it's chilly you don't need plastic, but you need to keep an eye on it because you don't want the spout or the handle drying quicker than the body because that may lead to cracking. Here are my two finished teapots, dried to bone dry, and they are ready for a bisque firing before I glaze them. Loading a bisque can be a little bit scary when you've spent hours and hours on these pieces, so please be gentle, and if you need a little video about that, that's here. Just to be clear, I do care about the climate and I always fire my kilns full to the brim, full to bursting. In these videos I cut out all of the other stuff that gets loaded in, but I just wanted to add that as a little PSA in case you think I hate the climate. I love the climate. I'm very fond of it. Okay, in they go. Good night. Sweet dreams, little babies. Today is Glaze Day. I don't like Glaze Day. We've got a hot kiln. We're gonna open it. We're gonna unload it. Let's open her up. It's very hot. I'm gonna need gloves. It's Glaze Day in the studio and I have 6 teapots that have come out of the kiln, and 2 of them sadly will not be being glazed today, and 4 will be. We have this one which has a very bizarre crack in the spout here. I've never really seen a crack in this place on a teapot. I think that maybe there was a crack before it was attached and it's just kind of like opened up a little bit wider. I don't really know, but that's fine. That's not going to be glazed, sadly. This one, there's a little crack on the handle. There it is. It's tiny, teeny tiny little crack. So he's not going to be glazed either, because I think it's very important with teapots is that they can hold their weight when you're pouring the tea, and the user has to kind of trust that everything's going to be okay in terms of holding the teapot. And I will say that a crack in the teapot immediately questions the structural integrity of a piece, you know? So this guy's not going to be glazed either, sadly. In terms of the other teapots, this one I'm a little dubious about because the lid fits perfectly now. If I twist it, it actually locks into place, which is like kind of nice, but it's slightly worrying because as soon as this gets a layer of glaze on this area and on the inside here, it may not fit anymore. So I'm going to glaze just the top of it. I'm not going to glaze this like inside flange piece, but I will glaze on the inside here. This is the risk of doing teapots in the way that I do them, and lids in the way that I do them. If you do them the proper way, then ideally it should always fit and a layer of glaze isn't going to get in the way of a good pouring teapot. Okay, so I have quite a lot to glaze today. I'm also filming a vlog as well as filming this teapot video. So I'm glazing in 4 colors today, but only 3 in the teapots. So I've got a honey, I've got a pink, and I've got 2 chalk because I know that they all look good. I don't really know about the blue because I'm also glazing in blue today. I just think that blue is too harsh for these teapots, so I'm gonna give that a miss. Okay, well first of all, there's quite a lot of stuff in here. But let's get rid of that. Okay, glazing teapots can be slightly chaotic because they don't always fit in your bucket, which is pain. This one will not, by like mere millimeters. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to work out a different way to glaze it to what I would usually do for normal glazing stuff. I do have this big bucket here that had this same glaze in it yesterday. Perhaps if I fill that up, perhaps, oh, we can't see that. Perhaps I can submerge it and hopefully we have enough glaze. Let's see. I'm just gonna glaze these, get them out of the way first. Okay, we'll glaze this guy first and I'm gonna just dunk it. This is just a regular situation. We don't need to worry too much about this guy. He's done. Let's put him aside. I can tell that there is not enough glaze in this to fill where it needs to go. There's like maybe an inch too little glaze. So I'm going to glaze the inside and then I will turn it over and I will dunk the outside. And usually the like displacement of the liquid in here will be able to bring the glaze up the sides. Because it's a teapot, there's 2 entry points for the liquid, and so sometimes that bubble that you get when you glaze a cup upside down doesn't exist. So we might need to do like a swirly situation. Guys, wish me luck. I'm nervous about this. You're possibly nervous about this. We're in it together, okay? Damn it. This is my least favorite situation when this happens. So that water, that liquid displacement thing did happen. We've got a little chatty Cathy on our hands. Okay, you can see that the top has absorbed more glaze than the bottom, and hopefully we can get away with that. Hopefully it's not too obvious when the glaze melts in the kiln that this part at the bottom has had significantly less. This is the thing with glazing when you only have a certain amount of glaze and you've got big items to glaze. It can be really difficult. And so sometimes things like this get a lot more glaze than this area here. Hopefully we can get away with it. Teapot 2, I'm really hoping fits in here. It's a little bit narrower of a form because obviously the body is taller and narrower. So fingers crossed we can just put it in here, dunk her in. It's always a little scary. I'm gonna pour it in and then I'm gonna dunk it like that. The thing to note when pouring and dipping is you want to cover the spout when you're pouring it in, otherwise you're going to get to the level of where the holes are and it's just going to start pouring out of there. So you want to block that so you can reach the rim of the pot. And then we're going to dip it, and hopefully there's enough room. I might kind of squeeze the bucket like this to give it just that little extra. Ooh, we got away with it. Ta-da! Okay, my friends, I've got to go now. The kiln is on. I will see you in 2 days. This is going to be an issue. I'm going to have to take this off. We're unloading the kiln today and it's full of teapots. It's full of other stuff too, but it's mostly full of teapots. Okay, this layer is the teapots layer, so I'm very excited about this. Okay. Hello, sweet babies. First of all, we've got this chalk one with its lid, fits well, no cracks, lovely. Look at that. That is so pretty. Second, we've got this pink one, which I wasn't sure if the lid was going to fit, so we didn't glaze the inside part of the lid. So we'll see. Nah. Not even close. I could sand this down a little bit and get it to fit, but currently it doesn't fit. But it's such a nice teapot. It's a shame. Yeah, well. Well, that's just a jug now. A teapot without a lid, it's just a jug. We all love jugs. Next we have a honey one of this square style. And the lid. Close. She's so pretty. Okay, cracks. Do we have it? Oh, we have a crack. Oh, that's so sad. It's in the handle here. It looks so nice though. God, that's such a shame. R.I.P. little baby. Okay. Fingers crossed this one is okay. No cracks. Stunning. The emotions really go from 0 to 100 when it comes to unloading a kiln. This one looks great. So this shop has ordered 2 teapots and we have 2 teapots. I'm glad I made 6 because we got 2 out of it. That's not a very good success rate. You know, usually I have higher success than 2 out of 6, but you know, it is what it is. You gotta live and you gotta learn. Like that looks so nice. Oh well, what can you do, eh? I've had to put this on because it was too sweaty from the kiln and it was very distracting seeing my big sweat patches. Okay, there's a couple of things left to do. One, pour one out for our fallen soldiers, the ones that haven't made it, the best squares, this cracked one, and this one that's just a jug instead of a teapot. Straight onto the ground. We'll say, what a great pour. I'm just gonna mop this up. Thank you, my friends, for joining me on the quest to make 2 successful teapots. Not a great success rate, and I'm gonna have to try harder next time because I don't like spending hours and hours of time on 6 items that should bring me money that I actually only get 2 from, you know? It's a bummer. Anyway, I've had so much success with teapots in my life, and you know, it just so happens that I didn't have success whilst I tried to film it, but it's fine. We had 2 success. It's not too bad, you know, and at least they're a pair. All right, I will see you in a couple of weeks for another video, and I hope you have a lovely time making teapots as well. You can catch me on Instagram and TikTok in the meantime if you are desperate for more videos. I get it, and I thank you. Thank you very much. But I will see you again in a couple of weeks for another pottery related video. See ya.